Jax was launched 2 years ago where, look, not a great deal has happened.
Does there need to be a little bit more honesty about where accountants and bookkeepers sit in the kind of like, you know, a hierarchy of importance, if you like?
They are fundamentally important to us.
I think there's a lot of app vendors that will feel very squeezed.
It does feel like you're potentially starting to compete with some of the apps in the ecosystem.
We are an open ecosystem, and I think we will always be led by what's the right thing to do by the customer.
Do you think they'll have some vendors running scared as a consequence of some of those announcements?
No.
Well, that's disappointingly uncontroversial.
I don't think people actually implement anything from these shows.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Digitals in a Cruel World, brought to you by The Loop, and we are live from the second day of Xerocon. We made it, John, we made it to the end.
We did, we made it to the end. We had a great party, Sophie Ellis-Bextor with her husband on the decks last night, and a very hot, sweaty after party.
Very sweaty after party.
But it was great fun. I think a lot of people enjoyed themselves, and day two's been pretty impressive, really. I mean,
day two has been a little bit busier, actually, I'd say. Day one was relatively quiet, but that's because everyone was in the main hall listening to all of the announcements that were made, and there were a lot of announcements. In fact, that was the longest 2-hour session to an intro that I've ever seen, but it did feel like they wanted to just get everything out in one go.
Yeah, it did. It felt like a bit of a brain dump, didn't it? But I think also they've been quite clever with the scheduling. They've had some very interesting speakers today on day two. Louis Theroux apparently was amazing this morning. We missed, unfortunately, because we were interviewing people, and a few other quite impressive people. So it's good. And I mean, I've enjoyed the slightly more chilled out vibe, to be fair, of like what Xerocon's been like.
Yeah, I would say compared to Xerocon of old, it definitely has felt much more like an intimate event compared to what we used to experience. There were live productions, there were very big productions, and there's only a little bit of frivolity going on at this event. So we've got the slide right behind us, which neither of us have gone on.
No,
yet.
I went on. I was on it yesterday.
That's right. John cleaned it off for the rest of us so that we could all go on it afterwards. He took all the dirt and grime with him. And
we haven't played paddle though. There's paddle downstairs.
We haven't played paddle downstairs. That's right.
Yeah.
And what else is there? There's some lollipops that are being made somewhere.
Yeah, there are.
A little bit of an area where you can check your cues.
Yeah.
To see what tones work with you and what don't work.
I've not really tried that. That's not my thing.
I haven't tried that
no.
either.
I quite like the laundrette idea where that's the Xero Design Lab, and it's been quite interesting. Like we were in there briefly yesterday for a session, weren't we, with the Department of Business and Trade, and
that's right.
Yeah, it was cool, and they're kind of using that as like their little almost like mini hackathon area, aren't they? Because they're doing like some vibe coding and stuff down there.
There is a little bit of real time. If you have a request, Xero are sitting there and they are helping you work through exactly what that request looks like. But there is another area where you can actually vibe code with them.
Yeah.
And that was the hackathon that we were also part of on the weekend. You built a lot of apps.
I did,
turned up, swanned in for the judging and told you weren't allowed to enter any of those apps. And then, but it was a very good session, and it is all about the rise of the builder here. So that is the thing that Xero is pushing. And in this episode, what we're going to bring to you is a number of different reactions to day one. So we've covered a few of the vendors that have sponsored to be in the room, and they have all reacted to the news that Xero with all the announcements that they brought to us yesterday. A lot of them are in beta and being released later in the year, so that's an important thing that we wanted to get their feedback on that. And we've also had a few accountant reactions to it as well. Not many, but a few that are either seasoned accountants or newbies, actually. One newbie we found, didn't we, John, in this hall?
I think it's important to get like the newbies as well, and just to get their feel for, what does Xerocon mean to them as well, rather than like the traditional kind of like the old timers like me who've been to many, and you've
got a lot of t-shirts.
You've got a lot of t-shirts, seen the kind of growth of Xerocon and then the change and how it's delivered and stuff. But I agree with you. Like that kind of like the almost the age of the builder thing. I actually really like to see an app like Xero doing something where they're saying, hey, if you've got something that really frustrates you with Xero, or you've got an idea that might be really great and you want to sit down with some of our product team and try and knock something out in 45 minutes, let's see what we can do. I think that's brilliant. I think it's a great idea. How many other apps are doing that?
There aren't enough. And and to be fair to Xero, It has come with a lot of controversy. It's been greeted with a mixed reaction, and I think they were expecting that. So in this episode, you're going to hear from a number of those people that were in the room with us and to hear how they've taken that news. And you're also going to hear from some accountants. And so it's not like our typical podcast episode, because we wanted to make sure that we gave to all of you that didn't come to Xerocon a real flavour of what actually was announced here. And there's an interview that we also conducted with Kate Haywood, who is the Xero MD. So listen into that, because we do cover a lot of the content that was covered in the main talk, and Kate gives us her take on exactly what that means for UK accounting firms and how much of a priority UK accountants and bookkeepers were. This man did a really good job of trying to continue making sure that he understood exactly where accountants and bookkeepers feature in the priority roadmap for Xero, so good job.
I think it's so important, because I think, as accountants and bookkeepers, I think the relationship with Xero has changed. The dynamic has changed, and I think sometimes, maybe we feel a little bit undervalued sometimes. So I was pushing Kate. I've not met her before. She's actually very, very impressive in person. I've really enjoyed the time that we spent with her, not just in the interview, but over the last day or so, just generally catching up on things. And like I say, I didn't really know much about her, so it's been good to get to know her and get to know how she feels about the marketplace and the importance of all customers. So not just accountants, bookkeepers, but also the small businesses they serve. And then just trying to understand a little bit more about the hierarchy and like what this means for Xero here in the UK going forward, because obviously that's her responsibility.
Listen, this is a great episode. I joined for the interview, and again, pure conjecture on where Xero are going to end up. But what I would say is, if you're interested in knowing more, stay tuned for the rest of this episode, and we will catch you on our next one for our usual programming, as always. But this one is a little bit of a special edition, so enjoy.
Go, Indy, go.
All right, I'm here with David Tuck, who is internationally renowned, but this is an interview world first, because we're actually doing it while David is getting his hair cut at Xerocons. How did you find day one at Xerocon yesterday? Give me your reactions to some of the announcements that were made on the main stage.
So, absolutely incredible first day for us at Mayday. Mayday, our mission being to mend month end. And what was by a distance the most exciting and relevant announcement for us was Xero's Ultra Plan, targeting medium plus businesses. And this is just so exciting for us. So I've been an entrepreneur in this industry for the last 13 years. And at the M of SMB level of the market, so in-house finance teams who want to thrive with a tech stack around Xero and Mayday, it really feels like history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. And we're right back where we were 10 years ago for accountants and bookkeepers at the S of SMB, now at the M of SMB, scaling with Xero, Mayday and a tech stack, and Ultra being the cavalry that's coming behind us, becoming the new default option.
Can I ask you something then that for me was a question that popped to mind. As Xero revealed more of its functionality, in particular not just with Xero Force but in general extended functionality, in particular with the workflow automations that could take place. Obviously you were also the founder of Chaser at some point. When you look at what Xero is pushing out, most of it obviously is coming, granted, later in the year, but does it worry you or concern you in any way that that there would be any shifting of the boundaries between yourself and Xero in terms of what functions and features they'll provide in the software?
So from a Mayday perspective, absolutely not. And we're really proud to have the strategic partnership that we do with Xero, which went live in Australia in November, got rolled out to New Zealand in April. And if you think of where we play as Mayday, so Mayday, our mission is to mend month end. We're all of the work between accurate bookkeeping and accurate accounting, reducing that down to a single click with what we call AIR, our proprietary technology, artificially intelligent recognition of accounting adjustments. And if you see what we do, it's one of the most spectacularly interesting challenges in accounting. I'm really fond of saying what we do is incredibly easy to do badly. it is so phenomenally difficult to do well, because what we do really is operate in a world of edge cases when it comes to the correct accounting treatment to apply to your transactions, whether that be deferred revenue, prepayments, accruals, intercompany reconciliations. And so what we're really excited about is, the analogy that exists with BankRec and Jax in Xero, to apply that same kind of exacting challenge and deliver that automation at the M of SMB when it comes to reducing month end down to a single click.
But surely if that's so what you're saying is because your technology is proprietary, but what happens when you have the 20 years worth of data that Xero also has, and in terms of how they see their role? Because I was quite surprised to see the change announcement with the fact that you could chase invoices, for instance. That was quite a shock to me. I don't know about you.
And I think the big distinction here is between sort of horizontally relevant sort of S of SME problems like chasing customers to pay their invoices, and M of SMB problems that are the preserve of in-house finance teams, accounting firms providing finance function as a service. And I would class chasing customers to pay their invoices, that's very much a horizontally relevant problem for all of the SMB population. That's very distinct from the M of SMB. We like to think about our customer segment being the top 25% of the SMB accounting system population.
Okay, well, on that merry note, David, I'm going to leave you to your haircut, and thank you very much for being
I can now turn. I realise my haircut is done, so here we go.
First for our podcast, having someone live on air.
Here we go.
And cutting their hair.
I'm here with Daniel Rock from SuiteFiles. Great to see you, Daniel. And we're on day 2, so we're on the hangover shift today, and would be great to just sort of hear from you about what you make of Xerocon in London so far and some of the announcements we heard about.
Announcements, people seem to be really excited about it, which is interesting, because I think probably the last couple of Xerocons I've been to, people have been a bit underwhelmed perhaps by Xero's announcements, whereas I think today, or yesterday in particular with the Xero Force announcement, a lot of accountants that we've come and spoke to us have been really excited about that and the possibilities it gives to them.
Yeah, good. And then going back to some of the announcements we heard yesterday, I guess there's some challenges now for maybe some of the apps in the ecosystem, right, as a consequence?
Yeah, I think any time you are reliant on a single ecosystem, there is a risk. And I think as an app, with their focus on payments, with their focus on reporting and some of the other things that they're doing, and I don't necessarily want to say names of apps, but some of those apps that chase payment, maybe as a way to put it, might feel a little threatened by the Xero announcements. So I think for us, we feel reasonably confident that we're not getting squeezed by that, but I think there's a lot of app vendors that will feel very squeezed.
Yeah, amazing. Thanks very much, Daniel. Great to see you as always, and we'll catch you at the next one, I'm sure, right?
I'm sure. Thank you so much.
So how are you going, Vipul?
Yeah, pretty good. Thank you very much.
How was day 1 for you? Because I saw the beautiful little AdvanceTrack logo there on the screen of the partners. You must be really proud of that as well, because
very much so. Yeah.
Name checking you in the whole stadium.
Yeah. No, well, my team were in there and they came back saying, here's the photo of AdvanceTrack.
Yeah, it was very good. And did you, in terms of the feedback that you've received from some of the accountants that you've spoken to, what's the general sentiment? How are people feeling about the announcements that were made, Xero Force, all the automations, the things that are to come?
I think everyone's excited that progress is being made. The proof is always in the pudding. So I think we'll see.
What's your feeling on that when it comes to how Xero is saying, okay, trust us to build on top of, we will be the harness, and therefore you guys build in that workflow automation to help you? Yeah,
and all that I would say on that is you just need well-trained people to actually take that data and produce something useful.
Yeah.
Because the reality is there are fewer and fewer accountants coming out.
Yeah.
So those that are there, they actually want a finished product that they can then talk about.
So thanks for your time, Vipul.
No worries. Thank you very much.
Take care.
Cheers.
Jordan, hello, mate.
Hi, how you doing?
Great to see you. So Jordan Vickery here from Final. Got that lovely little stand behind us and stuff, and we're here the second day of Xerocon. Do you think they'll have some vendors running scared as a consequence of some of those announcements?
No.
Oh, interesting. Straight up no. Okay. No. Well, that's disappointingly uncontroversial.
Yeah. Well, look, I think I think when you've got vendors that are pouring their heart and soul into building a best-of-breed solution for various things, and then anyone that comes out and tries to just replicate it as part of an all-in-one, like they're gonna struggle to do as well, in my opinion.
Yeah. And what's the general impression been in terms of like what you've heard from accountants and stuff? You know, you say obviously they're interested in exploring technology still.
Yeah.
We know that adoption sometimes can be a bit of a challenge, a bit slow, but do you feel like there's been a change recently or a change of pace?
I would say that in general, firms are taking longer to buy than they were previously. I think they're being a lot more cautious about what they purchase. Like 4 or 5 years ago, it was very much like, let's just go out there and acquire a load of new tech, whereas now I think they're being a lot more diligent.
All right, cheers, mate.
Thanks,
Great to see you.
So, hey, we are joined by Kate. And tell us about you so that we can learn a little bit about who you are and where you feature in this beautiful journey that is Xero.
Well, thank you for having me. It's nice to be here. So I'm Kate. I'm currently the UK MD of Xero, but my journey with Xero started 7 years ago. But before that, if I rewind the whole way back, I am an accountant. So I actually did a biology degree, realised I didn't want to be in labs anymore. I actually wanted to communicate and work with people, and happened to find Ernst & Young on my campus and did a summer internship, and the rest is kind of history. So I was an accountant, but I did different bits of accounting. So I wasn't in a traditional practice. I did M&A and I did all sorts of different bits, but I did a CA. I am ICAS trained, which is often gets some like different points of view out there, but I thought I'd get that one in. But ended up essentially finding my passion in strategy and ops consulting, because it brought together the finances, it brought together understanding a business and working with people. And actually it was someone I worked with at Deloitte that brought me into Xero to do to do strategy for Xero. And then I got fed up of doing strategy because we weren't as in strategists, not Xero, don't always execute when you just do the strategy. So I went into ops and I worked with Gary on his leadership team executing for the UK and South Africa. Went on maternity leave, came back as the country manager, and then went on maternity leave again, and then came back, and a few months later became the MD of Xero UK.
Wow.
So, yeah.
And it's been a roller coaster since you've joined, I imagine.
Yes.
Obviously, because it's yesterday we heard 600 different features being announced, and actually I was privileged enough to also attend the dev day, so I could see some of the reverse work that's been done on the API and all the things that have been launched that we are now we have the benefit of testing.
Yes.
So of all of the things that were announced yesterday, what are you most excited about seeing in the hands of accountants, in the hands of businesses, that you think that will add the most value?
There's two for me. I always think, people say, what's been game changing for Xero? I still think bank feeds is the game changer for Xero, all the ways back when. I genuinely think, because it gives people real time information into their bank with their finances. But the second one I talk about a lot, there's very few people that use technology to ingest data. It's still so manual, and all of the rest of it, kind of, if you're not getting it in the right way, and that's still a manual process, we've kind of fixed the middle problem and not the beginning of the problem. So smart document capture for me is really exciting. And then the second one I genuinely think is Xero Force.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll come back to that.
Okay, yeah, we're going to come back to that one, and we're going to come back to, again, great choice of name, and like in terms of how it features in your world. Maybe there's some speculation that will come on that one.
Oh,
later.
okay, I'm intrigued.
But Sukhinder yesterday described Xero as the trusted home build with payment rails, core accounts, and cash flow as the focus. So how do you translate that vision for UK accountants specifically?
So for UK accountants, I think what I am still passionate about is we are a heavy compliance market. We've just seen MTD for income tax come in. And again, that is one job that's based on the brilliant bookkeeping and data that you need. So I still think one of the best things for me is data ingestion, bookkeeping, accounts production, tax. But I think layered to that, cash flow is king for small businesses, and we know that. Thinking of payments as an injection onto the ledger, not something separate. So anything that brings a real-time view of everything that is going on in a small business. And when I speak to small businesses, what are they still most scared of? You heard it on stage. I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to go to jail. So I think it's just linking up all of those jobs into one workflow that the small business and the accountant and bookkeeper work on together to make people it easier for people to do their business, whatever that might be. So that I think that's what almost accountants and bookkeepers that I love want to help small businesses. So anything we can help them help small businesses, I think is what is relevant.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And you made some points yesterday. There was a, not you, like you as in the Xero
U, Royal
Xero
U.
There were some points that were very clear, and I think you have a question that's going to be a follow-up, but I'm very acutely aware that it's not optical character recognition.
Yes.
And it felt like there was an end to that sentence. It's not optical character recognition, and this is my words, not yours, but it sounded better, actually.
Yes.
So I think that was the end of the sentence. Possibly. I mean, you were looking at smart data capture, weren't you, as something that...
Yeah, I mean, I guess, you know, as you said, you know, smart data capture is a really interesting feature to add. And you know, when I was sat there listening to that announcement yesterday, I was sort of sitting there thinking, oh, this is really interesting. But it does feel like you're potentially starting to compete with some of the apps in the ecosystem. I know equally they are trying to compete with you in some ways as well. And so, you know, how do you strike that right balance in the ecosystem?
I think for me, the answer is we are an open ecosystem, and I think we will always be led by what's the right thing to do by the customer. And so I think as long as you're continuing to do the right thing for the customer, we will continue to extend our jobs to be done that make sense. And I think that is just a natural place that we're extending. The real reason it started was because of making that digital for income tax, that we were like, what's the pain point for this new group of businesses to software? What's going to be the hardest sticking point to get them to transition? And they're going to need to get their information in.
Yeah.
So that is actually, the reason was to help that segment of the market digitise.
I guess there's maybe a counterpoint to that, though, is that you could say that, you know, your ecosystem partners are also listening to the market. That's part of the reason that they exist, right? Because you know, they've either looked at Xero as a core product and then said, well, this is missing, so we're going to build it. And you know, we know that accountants, bookkeepers want it. So it's an interesting argument, I think, just in terms of you could sort of say, well, if we listen to the market, we'd basically build everything that exists in the ecosystem.
And I think the counter to that as a business is we could, if you try and build everything, you end up building nothing, and you end up with shiny magpie syndrome where you're looking around everything. And I think that's essentially business strategy of everywhere we could play and everywhere we could build, where are we going to prioritise based on all of the factors that we use strategically to go next. And I think that's just part of an evolution of a business of strategy. If you continue to play just in one place, you might not survive as a business yourself. So I think that's it's just the business strategy and the evolutions of Xero.
Sure. I mean, and yesterday you teased sort of Xero Ultra, and I know that we're not going to sort of get into the weeds of like what that really means, but I guess you're thinking about where that potentially does take Xero, and it gives you some equalization with the likes of Intuit and other people that you're competing with in the market, but it also probably takes you into a world where you're then starting to compete with ERP solutions potentially as well. But I guess that point about building everything but nothing being particularly good, that is the problem with a lot of ERP solutions. You know, they've tried to build the whole world of accounting and operations management and stuff, and almost none of it is particularly great.
Yes.
So as Xero think about kind of like moving into that world, I guess, how do you ensure that you don't kind of just become like the competition? I know there are ecosystem partners that help you with some of that, but actually that end of the ecosystem is probably the least developed in terms of being able to scale up and out into that kind of realm.
And I think that is a sequenced approach. So when people talk about Ultra, we are not talking full mid-market, the big mid-market. We're just not there yet. And I think over time, maybe if we ever get there, but we know from our customers, and I use the word stretchers, which probably isn't the most beautiful word, but there's people stretching the boundaries of Xero, and they don't want to take that full leap, and they don't want to go up because it costs them a lot, it's complex, their staff don't want to use it. And so I think, again, it's a demand from the market that there's 2 to 3 to 4 things that maybe they need that continue to stretch. So I think we'll take a sequenced approach of following these stretchers before we look elsewhere in the market about how we actually get them onto Xero. So it will be a sequenced approach. We're not saying we're going to be all singing and all dancing in the next 2 months, because I think people would not believe us.
Well, that's a challenge, right?
Exactly. And I think one of the things that we also are aware of, as you said, there's so many things and so many directions that you're going in right now. Some of the data that you also presented yesterday was that the API access requests are up 4x since January. So one of the common themes that we've also seen at Xerocon is the rise of the builder and what that looks like and what that means. So what is the expectation from Xero, I guess, going forward, is that even with the app ecosystem that they have and some of the hackathon that we saw on the weekend, is there some sort of agenda there with accountants as builders in the creation of maybe thousands of custom workflow builds that can be leveraged beyond just their own practice, instead by perhaps other practices in the same Xero ecosystem?
I think the first thing I will say is we're in an era that we can't tell the future. And so I think anyone that is trying to predict with a crystal ball, I genuinely don't think we know. So I think with that, I love when I'm speaking to accountants and bookkeepers out there that they are more intrigued and more invested in this than they've ever been. And I think that's brilliant, to that curiosity, that innovation that they want to develop. Building something for yourself versus building commercially for others, I think are two very, very different things. And I think there may be some that end up going into that. And if they choose to, that's a whole different path. I think there's a lot of accountants and bookkeepers out there that just want to build for their practice, to make it run optimally, to invest for their staff, their efficiency and their clients.
And has the feedback been that as well at this event? Because certainly your talk yesterday that you were giving to the theatre, there was a lot in there around the harness and how one could build for their practice and also remain safe, remain in a trustworthy environment. But it's fair to say that there's also a lot of fear.
There is, yeah.
We went to a later talk as well in terms of the actual adoption of people that are building right now and pay over $20 a month, and that percentage was something like 0.05%. So what are your thoughts on that? How do you allay the fears, the anxieties that we're also seeing from people who aren't building and feel that perhaps this is, too forward for them, too, in like, I don't know, what's the word?
Like
into the future.
Science fiction, yeah. Too science fiction for them.
I think they are completely fine. Genuinely, I think they're okay. It's technology, and then technology is an enabler to something for an outcome that you're driving towards. So I think you go back to the principle of what job are you trying to solve for, and then how are you going to solve it? I do think AI is a chance to take a step back and ask those questions again of what are you trying to drive and how are you going to do it? That doesn't mean you have to use AI, you have to build it yourself. It just doesn't, and I think there should be. And small businesses are the same themselves, and accountants and bookkeepers. There's lots of them that are scared, well, not scared, but they don't know how to use it. And that's where our role is, to embed it in there so they can use AI through other ways and still drive the efficiencies for themselves, for their teams, and for the economy. So I think be interested, be curious, take a growth mindset. But not everyone is going to start building, and I don't think they should.
Yeah, I think that's probably why you guys have worked on Xero Force,
Correct.
right? And you talked about that being one of your other big key things that you were very excited about. And I'm very excited about it as well. I might not be able to tell, but I genuinely think that this is kind of the future for platforms to look at modelling workflows that don't just sit in their own platform, so it doesn't just sit in Xero, but allows you to connect to multiple things. And it's almost like an extension of the existing ecosystem in many ways, just being able to use a different technology to be able to do that. And so how do you encourage people then to sort of latch onto Xero Force in these early days, and then I'm assuming at some point in the future it's probably going to be a paid for feature or a bolt-on or something like that. But I guess like how are you trying to encourage people to kind of think about those workflows, get everything connected up, but at the same time give them the confidence that their data is secure and all of those things that really matter to accountants?
So I think there are two parts to that question. The first is, I think the best way that accountants and bookkeepers end up utilising or learning is through other accountants and bookkeepers. And so I think it will be our job to get a group that are happy to test and give us feedback. We love feedback, and a lot of people give us great feedback.
I bet.
Yourselves included. And so I think it is getting people to test and experiment, and we are happy to take ideas. There will be some workflows that are pre-made in Xero Force, and we're using our research now to say what are the ones that are common across everyone. And equally, maybe there'll be a case of actually we've seen one and then other people have built 5,000 all of the same in all different ways, and then maybe we could help build. So there's ways we're thinking about that.
I mean, I think that crowdsourcing of kind of workflows and then kind of trying to help, squeeze the efficiency out of that, I think it's a really great idea. But I also see like a flip side of this is that, if I think about my time in practice, if I'm building some level of automation, whether it's using Xero or whether it's using something else, in many respects that's my IP. That's how we become more efficient or compete with other people in a more effective way. And so there is probably a little bit of like a contradiction in some respects there, right? In terms of, yes, accountants are willing to share, and I was always willing to share with other people in my world like what we were doing, but at the same time certain things were always like sort of just kept behind the veil a little bit. And
I think that's fine, and I think we would never, I don't think we'd end up publishing other people's, but I think it would be, is that a job to solve, and then we can help solve it for others. And I think that is something that's fine. But I agree, and I said it yesterday, that actually the context the accountants bring to each of their clients is unique. Their proprietary knowledge, their operating system, that is all of the context that makes you differentiated and how you're going to win your clients. And that is your secret sauce. And I don't think you should give that up, but you should think about it and know about it. And that will also depend on the segments or sectors you're servicing. Someone who wins GPs and provides accounting for GPs will look different to someone that works with farmers. So I just think there's enough distinction between it all, but the high level process that could be automated could be similar.
So just one more question on this and then we'll move on, but I'm now aware of at least 2 other products in the market that do something quite similar to Xero Force, not actually in the accounting segment, but more sort of on the periphery in terms of like audit and some other places like that. But I guess if this is kind of the direction that we're going to see your competitors move to and maybe other products move to as well, how do you win that? How do you win that game? Do you have to have that first mover status to kind of get that established platform where people put their workflows? Because accountants and bookkeepers and auditors and the tax people are not going to have multiple places for multiple workflows, because that just actually creates more inefficiency, not less.
I think I go back to what is the core of Xero and what we built, bookkeeping and accounting. And I think we still have very, very deep knowledge, expertise, workflows in the core product of Xero, and we will continue to innovate on that and then build it out across payments and payroll. And I think that is the core of where you'll see people coming to do their work on Xero. And that was what we were talking about yesterday, of that underlying model that we have, underlying models and architecture. I think that is still our winning source.
But what does that mean? So I appreciate that makes a lot of sense. I'm going to dwell on this now. Having said that, I wasn't going to. But I appreciate it makes a lot of sense for a small accounting practice that's Xero only, for example, and doesn't really have anything else. But for a bigger practice like the one I used to work for, you can't be Xero only. You have to be multiple platform, multiple accounts production, tax solutions, everything else. So the reality is that Xero Force is a really exciting product. But it's only going to work if they're not, in some respects, I can actually plug it into maybe some of your competitor platforms, and who knows whether they'll permit that or whether you'll permit that. And so the challenge then is like, if you don't do it or someone else doesn't do it, maybe someone else will, and so we'll end up there not in Xero Force. And I think that's the challenge really, like for practices and for you guys to figure out.
Exactly.
That was very
great.
Well done, John.
Good summary.
I'm gonna zoom in.
So there was a question there.
I'm gonna zoom in a little bit more on what Kate was saying about again the payment side of things. So the fact that we spoke about payment rails, real-time verified ledger data yesterday, cash flow projections with the health scores as well, payment behaviour scoring on top of that, by customer bill payments, by a credit card, even where the suppliers don't accept card. And there was 20 years worth of transaction data across 5 million businesses. That's a lot. So that
Good summary.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's why I had to keep looking down for that because there's quite a lot of points there. But yeah, that for me, I was like, that's the trappings of a lender, in the sense that, you know, this would be the perfect formula that would allow small businesses to become more lendable. And we've seen some encroachment from other banks that have decided to become accounting technology companies. Is this going back to something that we saw maybe like 4 or 5 years? Is Xero becoming a bank?
Oh, okay. Big, bold question. What's your definition of a bank?
Oh, this is your expertise. Come on.
Did you notice that?
This is a consultant.
Turned it back on me. That was very good.
I've been practicing for Louis.
Yeah. What's my definition of a bank? I mean, I would expect to have the current accounts in there. I'd expect to have something that allows me to manage book-to-book payments, allows some sort of cross-border currency, well, cross-border transaction that manages the currency, a physical plastic in some cases. Yeah, I'd expect some things that would allow me to be a bit more frictionless with how I am managing my money and where it's held, and that there's some safety around that money as well, that I know that, you know, there's protection with it. So that for me is a bank, and that's why I say I can see some trappings there that just feel like a natural progression. And I know that so much of the fear that we've heard might be in Xero owning more parts of its ecosystem partners, and that while that might be the case, I think what I tend to see is like, actually maybe we're missing the point. This is something that you know is a beacon towards that, rather than do you want to do more of what the other app vendors are doing at the moment.
If I take a step back, the whole purpose of Xero is to make life better for small businesses. And the two big issues that we hear from small businesses, one, they're scared about being compliant. Two, their cash. They end up with poor cash flow. So they're either not getting paid on time, which is why we focus on payments. And then there is a piece to that we hear regularly, that there is a missing middle of small businesses that find it hard to get access to capital, or they're not happy, or they're not serviced. So you're right, and we are seeing in other markets, in other segments, the convergence between accounting and financial services. So I think, again, we listen to our customers. Do I think in the short term we're going to be a full bank with a banking license? And
well, the way the FCA goes, no.
So that's why I asked the cheeky question about a bank. I think there is convergence between the jobs, and where it makes sense, I'm all about making it easier for small businesses with their advisors to do the job in one place that makes sense. So that is why in our invoices, we know if you put a payment link, they get paid faster. We know that actually if you have a credit card, they can pay by credit card. They get payments easier. So anything that we can help, I think this year, one of the lovely things that we scientifically, is that the right word, through our platform saw that those that use Xero products and payments product end up in the black more often than those that don't. And I just think that's a great outcome.
It's an incredible story, that.
Yeah,
right?
like it's just, that's the outcomes we're driving for. So anything where we can really feel like we can add value, I think we'll explore, because why shouldn't we for the businesses that we're trying to help?
You talked about the ability of small businesses now to be able to pay bills using their credit card, but it actually goes out of the business as effectively a bank transaction, bank transfer. So the end supplier doesn't really see any difference. I thought that was a really actually fascinating use of technology, and a really clever thing. My accountant brain though was like sort of latching onto the fact that I think if I've got a small business owner who doesn't have a business credit card, that's going to go on their personal credit card, and all of a sudden I'm looking at that going, oh, well, that's suddenly made my bookkeeping a hell of a lot more complicated all of a sudden, and potentially introduces a different set of challenges and risks, and that wasn't really expressed on stage and talked about on stage. I just wonder, have you talked about that with partners, and what's been the feedback?
So the flip side of that, how often did a small business come to you after they'd done something and not tell you?
All the time, because communication channels are poor, and we're accountants, we're not really good at being humans.
And I think that's the bit that we've had the conversation of, like, if they're going to do it, let them do it, and at least surface it so we can see it.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's kind of we're not going to change all of the behaviour, but how do we bring it up front to you more quickly, or flag it, or the signals? And that's in Xero Partner Hub when you're talking about those signals. How do we give everyone those insights more quickly, so there's just a much more transparent relationship going on?
Yeah, and I guess for you, you see more transactional data again as a consequence. So that's there's more opportunity, and we know from seeing what happens in the broad ecosystem in terms of what's happening either in the Xero ecosystem or the accounting broad ecosystem, is that payments is where everyone kind of wants to sit, right? Because you can take a margin, and there's a whole bunch of sort of essentially passive income that comes from that, which is hugely valuable.
But with open finance, I think we'll be changing the economics of it. So I think it is more about actually the workflow.
I would hope that someone does, because payments has always been, something that thorn in the side for many small businesses when you're taking payments and there's such high fees and interchange, and it's a very, in some way, anti-competitive initiative for small businesses. Very unfair. But I will say, so some of the work that Xero's done that we really, I would like to give a little bit of a big up on myself and John. We had the privilege of meeting the Department for Trade and Business yesterday, HMRC, and some other good folk from startups who were talking about the exciting new initiatives that could perhaps come into fruition around a single business ID. So that will be, and that's again credit to Xero, because you're really pushing the agenda on that, not just that, but also with e-invoicing. And the fairer payments. Is the other one as well? Which John built a little app for himself, and he was going to be very proud to show everyone that. And
the report for late.
I
heard about this.
Oh God!
I'm excited.
I fixed your backlog. That's basically what I did at the Xero Hackathon.
Amazing, thanks. But I think the single business identifier, we took a group of accountants and bookkeepers. I think the beauty of Xero that we try to do is work as a convening to give the voice to the parties, to other people like government. So taking a group of accountants and bookkeepers to number 10 to talk about e-invoicing, so the right people in the room could hear the real voices of how this would work. And the business identifier came up that we have this login and this login and this login, and it's so complex to do anything, and we need to fix that before e-invoicing. And they took that on, and I think it's really, really exciting what they've just announced. So yeah,
it's fantastic.
And how does, obviously it's really great that you do that, and like you say, just sort of do that convening of business and government and accounting and the sector and segment and stuff. But is there more that you could do in that respect in terms of building more connections and stuff? Because I hear from people who are involved in things like XPAC, for example, that can not always be particularly functional. And there's clearly you guys were very proudly talking about on stage yesterday about clearing some of the backlog of like suggestions and ideas that come through, and yet there's obviously still hundreds, thousands, who knows how many, because we've always got great ideas and things that we would like to fix. Is there an ability for Xero to kind of speed up some of these things?
I think, can we do more convening? Probably, yes, always there's more we can do. I think we still always try to connect with the community. So XPAC or Xero Partner Advisory Council is a group that we convene. And people often ask what we do, and I'm like, we do deep product work. And they sit in a room for 8 hours and they give us really harsh feedback. So I spoke to an XPAC member yesterday, and she was like, wow, we've been talking about some of this stuff for the last 12 months, and then to see it all come together in one place was fascinating, those two journeys. Could we continue to do more and improve? Always. There's always room for improvement. I think with Xero product ideas, there are so many signals that we get. And so from the flip side, how do you prioritise? And I said earlier that I could speak to one accountant, and I did this yesterday, and speak to another accountant, and I said, what do you want from working papers? Two completely different points of view. And so I think we try to use actual intelligence to work out how to prioritise. Would I like to do everything? Yes. Is it possible? No.
How do you determine, is that an authoritative direction to travel in?
It's not the only voice we use, because it is, at any point in time, we're all humans, and actually we don't want bias. So we use much bigger and broader scientific and statistically relevant research, quantitative and qualitative, from a product design perspective to actually design our products.
And how important are accountants and bookkeepers to Xero now? Because reading the stats that you publish, because you're a public company and everything else, most of Xero's new business comes from direct. So the accounting and bookkeeping channel arguably is not as important anymore from a revenue point of view as it used to be maybe in the early days. And again, you could argue whether it really was in the first place or not, because that was strategically just a direction of travel that you took. But is it now more important for you to be listening to your business customers? And then in terms of like presenting something like Xerocon, does there need to be a little bit more honesty about where accountants and bookkeepers sit in the kind of like a hierarchy of importance, if you like?
So they are fundamentally important to us at Xero, and especially here in the UK. So I can't give you UK specific cut of revenue between direct and accountants and bookkeepers, because
you should know that.
I do know it. I would probably put in jail for insider trading because we don't disclose it, and my CFO would probably tell me off. I think what you see at a high level, different markets have a different proportion of the use of accountants and bookkeepers by small businesses. In the UK, the split is much more even, but I would say it is even. So there are a lot of small businesses that don't have an accountant and bookkeeper, and I don't want them to be left alone. So I want to help them too, but I 100% also want to make sure we are supporting accountants and bookkeepers that are the access route to the rest of the small business population. So they will continue to be a co-customer of ours, and they're really, really important. So although at the headlines you might see Xero's only going for the direct growth, that is actually different by market. So I wouldn't let the headlines ruin the actual sentiment of what's happening underneath.
No, I get that. I mean, again, if you look at a lot of the features that have been announced, you could probably argue that they lean more towards solving small business problems than accounting problems, and some of the other core functionality that Xero have in terms of XPM, from a UK point of view, it doesn't feel like it's been developed much. There's some other challenges and stuff. So I guess
what's the answer
mean,
to that?
Right?
So the very honest answer is, if I rewind a couple of years, we sometimes were trying to promise too much, and we probably weren't delivering as much as we could. So our strategy with the 3x3 was to be very, very specific about what we were going to ship and what we were going to deliver. And accounting and bookkeeping was the job that we were going to deliver, and the tools to help accountants and bookkeepers deliver that work. So that's where Xero Partner Hub, you've seen investment, the health score, smart document capture. So everything we are shipping that is for the work, we are providing tools to the accountant and bookkeeper to be able to do that in bulk. So I would argue that we are investing in the accountant and bookkeeper as the co-customer to do that work. Yes, we haven't done as much on practice management tools, but we allow the ecosystem, who are brilliant at that, and it costs a lot of money to invest in that. But Xero Partner Hub and XPM, it is there, but it was just a sequencing. Again, you can't do everything at once and do it badly.
And we've now got some legislation which is coming in, which basically says that small businesses now need to file their accounts digitally. Obviously that used to be the realm of accountants and bookkeepers typically to kind of do that.
Yeah.
But I guess is there a pressure now internally for Xero to be able to provide that functionality to your business customers to do for themselves, potentially?
To do taxes?
Yeah.
Again, I go back to that question. If, say, about 50% of the market doesn't use an accountant and bookkeeper, someone has to give them the software to develop that. So, and I think that's the bit. But I think my biggest thing, and I said this yesterday, is small businesses that work with an accountant or bookkeeper are better off. We see it in our data that they have better outcomes, and not marginally, significantly. So our position is you should work with an accountant or bookkeeper. I just don't want people to be left behind if they're not. And I think that's the tension that...
And I think most accountants and bookkeepers understand that. I think what they would like, and again, we don't know where this, I don't know where this goes, right? But maybe what they would like is some more signalling or signposting for those businesses that don't have an accountant bookkeeper to sort of go and seek one out, because some other platforms that you compete with definitely do not do that.
And this is what's interesting. So have you seen in our tax product where we have you hover over it and say, this is a difficult piece, have you thought about speaking to an accountant or bookkeeper? So in product, we have product messaging to point people to think about, this is a tricky bit, this is a tricky journal, this is depreciation. Have you spoken to an... So we are trying to do that. And more work on our partner program and things like that, I think, will be coming out.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for your time, Kate, and it's a pleasure spending this time with you. I know that I could already tell John was going in the direction of the Jonologue for a while there, so for which we hope that it wasn't too much of a grilling for
It was
you, but
brilliant.
it was very much relevant to people who listen, and so I'm glad that we were able to spend the time. Enjoy the rest of your Xerocon as well.
Thank you. It's
What's
lovely to see you
left
both.
of what's left of it anyway. And we will hopefully catch up with you again very soon.
Yes, thank you very much.
Amazing. Thank you.
So, Jim, ex-Xero, we're at Xerocon.
We're here at Xerocon on day 2.
What's the most exciting takeaway for you, I guess, or what you might want to bring into your practice?
Yeah, so I think one of the really interesting but also really challenging things at the moment is that everyone's building a lot very quickly. And that's really positive, I think, in the sense that there's activity in the market. People have see problems all the time, and are coming up with solutions for those things. One of the things I'm mindful of, though, is that there's a lot of feature focus on that stuff. And even with the AI adoption stuff, there's still a lot of you can build this, which is geared towards practices. And some what I'm kind of encouraged by is that there's still a lot of focus on actually what clients want is this. And it's still very much the human side. So as cool as all the tech is, it's that reminder that it's still an enabler to genuine client relationships and people understanding the businesses that they're supporting.
So, Ravi, we're here at Xerocon. I think the end of the talks now, the big ones at least. How have you found the big talks this year?
I found them incredible. I mean, it's truly inspiring to get so many accountants and bookkeepers together in one place, and I think Xero do it the best.
And what did you think of the big announcements yesterday? Was there one that you liked more than others?
I think I was particularly intrigued by Jax in terms of how that's been enhanced, because I think AI, as we know, Ryan, we've spoken on panels together before, that there's a lot of fear in the accounting industry about AI, and it's more about just seeing what small steps you can take in order to achieve efficiency, really, for not just our own practices but also our clients' business as well, how we can replicate that.
But what do you think about the other ones, such as Xero Force? Did that give you any inspiration?
Absolutely. Xero Force, I think that's going to be a game changer for many, because you can really customize it, tailor it to how you want it to work for yourself.
But look, I don't think we should hold you any longer, especially if you need to prep for
Thanks so much.
your
It's
talk.
so good to see you as always, my friend. Take care.
Exactly. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
So, Sharon, we're at Xerocon. One of the legends, as you've been to so many in the past. But I've had a lot of vibes, a lot of answers from people that said it feels like it was from prior Xerocons. There's been a lot of announcements. There's a lot of new stuff.
Yeah.
What was your initial thoughts on, and what was maybe your favourite announcement from yesterday?
Favourite announcement, that's a difficult one. I'll come back to that. So this is, I think, my 10th Xerocon. So I remember the first one in 2012. There were 200 people there.
It's a little bit bigger now,
This
isn't
is
it?
different, yeah. But it feels quieter, which I think is nice. There's enough room for you to get around and see the app partners, and enough time to have conversations.
You said about the fact it's quiet, and I agree with you. I don't know if it's just because it's such a big space, but it does feel like there's less people.
Yeah, I think we were just saying, I think over the Xerocons over the years, this one does feel quite different. There's always been a really strong community, and I'm going to be honest, it feels a bit less of that this year. There's less faces that I'm seeing that I'm used to seeing, if that makes sense. But I wonder if it is because Xero has become such a huge establishment now, more corporate. I think, I've got to be honest, I think it is lacking a little bit of the human side.
They are great at telling a story at Xero.
Yeah,
as
that's
are
very
you.
true.
So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you very much.
We're at Xerocon with Mr. Xerocon, and it feels like there was quite a bit of a vibe on day one. What was your first impressions with some of the big announcements?
Yeah, so yes, it is indeed my Christmas day. It was. I think in terms of impact-wise, I think that's probably been the biggest and best in the last few years, in the last few Xerocons, to be honest. The Xero Force stuff and AI, really exciting. I know it's that thing of AI, here we go again, and there's a lot of hype, but having been fortunate enough to be on the Xero Force kind of alpha testing, I've seen some of the stuff. And probably, to be honest, where Jax was launched 2 years ago, where, look, not a great deal has happened, it's not really changed the world, if we're being completely honest. This bit feels much more real and much closer to it's really going to change workflows.
But there were some also interesting announcements in kind of some of the ways they're encroaching on some of the other apps, like data capture, credit control. What were your take on that? Do you think that they're trying to do a bit too much, or is it in the natural evolution?
I think things have got to evolve, and there's an element of natural evolution, and I think, that's getting really close to core functionality.
Well said. Thank you so much, Stuart, and enjoy the rest of Xerocon.
Indeed. Thank you very much. Much appreciated.
Alrighty, I'm here with David from Youtopia, one of my mates. We've been hanging out with each other for a good few years now, and we've been skiing together as well. So I just wonder, what do you think generally about what's been announced by Xero? Is it going to help you as a practice with your growth and everything else?
So we're Xero only, which helps because everything that they're announcing we'll use. They announce a lot. It's interesting. I kind of say, I think 90% of people will hear this, go away from here. It's not available now. They won't implement anything.
Yeah.
Next year, it'll be the same again.
Right.
So that's just my thoughts. I don't think people actually implement anything from these shows.
Yeah.
Happy to be called out if there are people who do. But what frustrates me with them announcements, I think they're great. I think they're going to be game changing, or they're going to make a big difference to certain people in different ways if what they're saying works.
Yeah.
But they're saying betas at the moment, so we're talking 6-9 months before they're released. And is it going to do what they're saying it's going to do? I think that's my biggest question. It's it's almost like what Tesla did with stock. I'm selling you this dream, and it's going to be there. This is what it's going to do, but we don't know that yet.
Oh well, David, thank you for that. It's great to see you, mate, and hope you enjoy the acquisitions going forward and everything else that happens with life and the kids and all that kind of jazz. So,
thank you.
Cheers, mate.
Hey, Sam. Hello. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
I'm here with a Xerocon newbie.
First
Xerocon. And tell us about yourself. Where are you from a practice?
Yes.
And tell me all about that practice as well.
Yeah, so I work in practice. I work for Danes Accountants. It's a nationwide firm, really. Got quite a few offices now. I'm a client services manager, so I have a portfolio that I look after. So. And then stuff like the health scores that they're going to start bringing in as well.
That you're the first person to pick on that health score. I thought it was quite a nifty little way of looking at the business and then seeing how you could improve it in real time and
definitely.
some actions that you can follow upon.
Yeah.
Would that ordinarily have been something that's a judgment call by you?
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, if the accounts need to be done for the year end, you probably get an account staff to pick it up, but you don't fully know where that bookkeeping's at. Whereas now, you can say to the account staff, okay, don't actually start the work on the financial statements unless the percentage is above 80% or above 85%, something like that.
Well, enjoy the rest of your Xerocon. It was
much.
Nice chatting to you. Thanks for spending some time.
Take care.
Alrighty, so here we are. Pretty much the end of Xerocon and the end of the podcast that we've done specifically on Xerocon. I think lots of things to cover, lots of interesting announcements, opinions, feedback. Obviously, some of it was a little bit raw and just off the cuff in terms of people haven't had a chance to maybe consume all of the announcements and everything else. And
we got some rejections, so let's not forget we got rejected by a few people, either because they were slightly hungover and worse for wear, or because they're reserving judgment, and that's fair. So we are looking forward to hearing your feedback on this episode and your feedback in general with the announcements that Xero have made. So if you've got a strong opinion about it, or if you've just got a really passionate, positive opinion about it, wherever you feature on the spectrum, we would love it for you to get in touch with us. Don't forget, we've got some exciting things coming up in our world as well, so stay tuned for that. The awards are coming up, so if you haven't already nominated someone, please make sure that you do that. And on top of that, we are looking to do some exciting stuff with Xero later in the year as well to facilitate the rise of the builder. So if you haven't already seen some of that on our website, then please do visit our new website, which is intheloop.accountants. That's intheloop.accountants, and you'll be able to see all of the latest episodes, all the shorts that are covering the different sponsors, as well as some of our upcoming events and the training courses that we are putting on. So thanks for joining us, thanks for staying with us throughout Xerocon, through this Xerocon episode anyway, and we will catch you on the next one.
Bye.